I'm not going to act like I was always a fan of Taylor Swift. I wasn't. In fact, I bought into the media's portrayal of her as the bad guy. I believed in the whole conspiracy of her dating a different guy each week, and I thought that all of her music was bland, vapid, boring, and the same. When Kanye West said his little thing at the VMAs, although a little disrespectful,
I'm really happy for you. I'm gonna let you finish.
I agreed with him. And look how well agreeing with Kanye West has aged over the years. Aside from her singles, some of which are really good and don't get enough recognition, I'd never really given a full Taylor Swift album a chance. But Folklore changed that for me. Folklore was unlike anything I've really ever heard. I mean, how can one of the top artists in the world release something so down to earth and genuine? When you think of stars, you often think about the grandiose that they're surrounded with. But this truly does feel like a quarantine album. I mean, even the happiest songs on it have this bittersweetness about them, like August or Betty. And the lyrics are just so painfully personal to the point where I don't really know if she's talking about her inner secrets or mine. But before I rave about it too much, it blew my mind. It was released at the perfect time for me, and it's my 10th most played album of the year. This is my ranking of the songs if you're curious. It even inspired me to check out her earlier projects, which I really enjoyed. I haven't listened to Red yet, but as of now, my favorites are Fearless and Speak Now because I just really like the passion in her voice. When I woke up to the news on Thursday that Evermore would be dropping the next day, I was really shocked but excited. I mean, a sister album to one of my favorite albums? The thing about Taylor Swift is that it's hard to find music like hers because it's just so unique to her own experiences. So while I was definitely surprised, I was excited and looking forward to it. Evermore definitely sounds more like a pop album and less like an indie folk album. In some ways, I believe it is the perfect companion, but in others it falls short. It still has that same not quite lo-fi but low-key production behind it that makes both albums special. Let's go through the track list. I'll try and rank as we go. Willow is the perfect opening. It's super upbeat, and I actually think it sounds a lot like the beginning to Invisible String. A lot of people I've seen don't really like it because of that repeated chorus, but I actually love her higher vocals on the song. I think it's really cute, and it's a clear shift to Evermore being a happier album than Folklore. Followed by it is Champagne Problems, which cancels out basically everything I just said. It's this really sad, simple piano song about a rejected proposal. I love the way it builds up to the bridge, and she has this quiet, strained strength to her voice as she sings it. The glittering instrumentals of Gold Rush follow. The introduction to the song is absolutely ethereal, and I love how snappy and clever the lyrics are. Honestly, it's probably my favorite chord progression on the whole album. It's a little repetitive, but it's just so infectious that I can honestly forgive it. Make no mistake, Season may sound like your typical Christmas cash grab song, but the lyrics on this are extremely thoughtful. It captures that feeling of sadness that comes with the holidays, but the lyrics are still optimistic enough to not leave you feeling sad after listening to it. I love the little drums that pitter in the background, like that one Christmas song, Little Drummer Boy. I mean, somehow this song just sounds like winter in musical form, and I don't really know how she did that. Now, I feel like this is an unpopular opinion, but I don't really like Tolerate It. The lyrics are great on paper, but something about the piano and the way she sings it makes it feel kind of pretentious. It's too slow and does not have a particularly satisfying ending. It's very one note. I want more songs in general that sound like No Body, No Crime. Now, don't get me wrong, I am not your typical country music fan, but I love two things. I love a song that can tell a story, and I love a song with a catchy groove. And this song has both and more. The sisters from Haim complement Taylor's voice perfectly. Also, PSA, if you haven't, please go listen to Women in Music Part 3. It's one of the best albums of this year. Anyway, I love Taylor's revenge streak that she seems to hold on this track. It's very different from a lot of the other stuff on this album, but it's still very, very good. Despite the name, you will not get an upbeat song from Happiness. It's very bittersweet and subtle that lets Taylor's songwriting really shine through. In that way, it kind of reminds me of Peace from Folklore. It's really, really pretty and really simple, but I still think it's a really strong song. Dorothy, or Dorothea, I'm actually not really sure how it's pronounced. Dorothea is probably one of my favorite songs on this album. It has my favorite chorus. That little emphasis on the last syllable of Dorothy gives me this instant serotonin rush that I can't even really describe. It sounds like one of those classic, timeless songs that everyone grows up knowing and loving. It has easygoing chords and consistent yet calm vocals. The lyrics are about a friend you don't know anymore, so it's relatable and it's perfectly executed. It's definitely a song I would recommend to literally anyone, no matter what you listen to. Coney Island is a skip. No disrespect to the National, but I really don't think their lead vocalist should have been on here. His voice has a lot of texture and character that I probably would like on its own, but it doesn't mix with Taylor's more malleable voice. I really like her voice because it's kind of like a chameleon in the sense that it can do a lot of things and it's very versatile. But I feel like the National, like his lead singer, only has like one way of singing and it did not blend very well. Also, it has the worst lyric on the whole album with, "We were like the mall. Before the internet, it was the one place to be." And I generally find it to be really slow and mundane. To me, Ivy sounds like a slower and more mature continuation of August, which is great because I absolutely adore August. There's some really clever lyrics sprinkled in here, and ironically, the song feels very, very down to earth. Other than maybe Dorothea, Taylor sounds most natural here, which I really enjoy. Cowboy Like Me isn't bad. I really struggle to buy the idea of Taylor being this cold hearted cowboy, which may be why this song doesn't really work, but I love the return to the genre. Her voice just lends itself so easily to country music, and I really wish the song was a bit more exciting like No Body, No Crime, but that's okay. I just want to see more music like this from her in the future. Long story short is proof that good, fun, clean pop music can still be made and done well. Some of my favorite lines on the album are just casually said really, really fast, and they lead up to that typical I'm all about you love song chorus, but it doesn't feel formulaic. It works really, really well, actually. In terms of how the album is structured, its quicker pace definitely makes it stand out, but I like that she takes risks. Marjorie will kick you in the stomach and knock the wind out of you when you're not paying attention. This song hurts. It's about Taylor's late grandmother, and from the first second you can hear the admiration they must have had from each other. It's a feminist anthem and a mourning of life, and all in all, it's just so heartbreakingly powerful. I don't know how often I'll end up visiting this song, but it's really, really beautiful, and I believe it's a really wonderful tribute. Closure is aggressive. It is blunt, and it will cut to the bone. The instrumental doesn't always line up with Taylor's words, so it creates this chaotic mismatched effect that reminds me of the feeling you get when your mind is racing really fast, so you can't even think. The whole song sounds so deliberately rushed, and that combined with this jarringly abrupt vocal delivery will definitely hit you. I think this song is a hit or miss depending on whether you relate to it, and for me, it's a hit. The album closes with the title track, with a feature from Bon Iver, who you may remember from Exile. The song, from what I've seen, has really mixed reviews. The beginning is definitely Taylor's voice at its prettiest and most enchanting, but the song itself stays really stagnant until Bon Iver's feature. A lot of people do not like Bon Iver's feature. I mean, a lot of people. But I actually really, really like it. He brings this new energy and new life to the song and to the album as a whole. His higher register is really pretty, and unlike other features on this album, sounds really nice when with Taylor. I think the song will just become more and more underrated over time, and that's fine, because more streams for me. Comparing this album to Folklore feels like it has to happen, even though they are obviously individual works that can stand on their own. Taylor herself has said that the albums are sisters, and hopefully a part of a trilogy, but let's not get into that. If Folklore is Taylor's take and imitation on folk music, Evermore is Taylor's interpretation of the genre. Let me explain. An imitation is like a replication, or a copy. Folklore sounds like a lighter alternative to other indie music like Phoebe Bridgers, Mitski, Angel Olsen, or anyone in Boy Genius. Folklore sounds like Taylor dipping her toes into the shallow end of the indie music pool. It is an album in the alternative genre, not one based off of it. An interpretation is a representation of sorts, and it's based off one's perception, thoughts, personal experiences, and preferences. Evermore sounds a lot more like a traditional Taylor Swift album, but with these more indie alternative influences present. Allow me to explain even further. You can create a piece of work that is inspired by something, even if the final product ends up a lot different. For example, I absolutely love the Marvel movies and comics. I'm very familiar with a lot of them, and additionally, I also love to write. If I wrote my own superhero book with an origin story and villains and the whole superhero shebang, I would be writing and creating within the same genre from which I was inspired. I believe that is like folklore. However, if I took some of the themes or abilities from Marvel media, but shifted the overall narrative into something different, like let's say, a horror story, I would have been inspired by that original Marvel source material, but creating something in a completely different genre, even if the two may end up resembling each other somewhat. I believe that's like Evermore. Neither one is good nor bad. By that logic, I think the album you prefer really depends on the type of music you listen to on a regular basis. If you are a huge Taylor Swift fan or even just a pop music fan, you probably prefer Evermore. I think it's like a highlight reel of everything that has made Taylor successful throughout the years. It has her country roots on songs like Cowboy Like Me and No Body No Crime. The lyricism is poignant and reminiscent of her earlier eras, but doesn't quite sound as dated. And finally, I can hear the sonic influences of Reputation and Lover and Folklore, which I can only thank Jack Antonoff for. So thank you, Jack Antonoff. I think the variation can kind of hurt Evermore at times because it doesn't always sound cohesive, especially with the original song ordering. But this can also be a good thing because that means that now there is a song for literally everyone. If you're asking me which one is better, my bias is going to go to Folklore, just because that's the genre of music that I generally prefer. However, I think Evermore is definitely a better collection of Taylor Swift songs. If you're like me and bandwagoned on Taylor hoping for a Folklore 2, you're not going to get that here. Taylor Swift eras historically sound very different from one another with not a lot of overlap. As Taylor herself grows and matures, so does her music. I think it's something that makes her really, really special. Her fans feel like they grow up with her. But if you want to hear absolutely everything that makes Taylor great, a culmination of her best qualities and attributes, or even if you just appreciate smart lyrics and creative concepts, and authenticity in music, this album is a must listen. I think it's like a solid 7 to 7.5, at least. I'm not really sure. But it's 2020. If you don't like Taylor Swift, grow up. If you like this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and maybe even turn your post notifications on. I don't know how often I'm going to post yet or what my upload schedule will be like, but I really hope to get more videos up because talking about music is something that I'm really, really passionate about. As I said, if you've watched this far, don't forget to leave your opinions down below. Have a great day, and please stream Evermore by Taylor Swift.